Hey, it's Josiah. So, over the last few episodes, we've been discussing fascism. Back at the end of February, Chris Barker and I talked about The Eye of Vichy, a documentary looking at newsreel and propaganda footage from Vichy, France. And then earlier this month, for the Fruitless Book Club, we discussed The Anatomy of Fascism by Robert Paxton. On the Patreon, Josh and I discussed Claire Denis' film Beau Travail, which, although not explicitly about fascism, had a lot of themes related to it. So, to wrap up March and this little impromptu series on fascism, Chris Barker joined me to talk about Umberto Eco's incredibly influential essay, Ur-Fascism. This is one of those essays I've heard referenced a lot. There are phrases from this essay that have become synonymous with fascism. You know, contempt for the weak. The enemy is both too strong and too weak. Selective populism. You've probably heard some of those. Nevertheless, neither Chris nor I had ever actually read the essay before, and we found it really, really insightful. So this is a fun episode, and I hope you enjoy it. But before we get going, I do need to say that you could support this show on Patreon. For a mere $3 a month, you get access to a whole back catalog of exclusive episodes, as well as at least 2 new ones each month. You also get access to the Fruitless Discord, as well as the occasional deleted scene from a main feed episode. If you're not quite ready to support the show financially, that's all right. Consider just leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps out with the algorithm, and hey, I might read your review at the top of an episode, so yeah, that's cool. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get on with the episode. Let's talk about fascism. You're listening to Fruitless, a podcast hosted by me, Josiah Sutton. And this is episode 83, A Beehive of Contradictions, where Chris and I discuss Ur-Fascism by Umberto Eco.
Anyway, Umberto Eco. So, the thing about this dude is he's cool.
Yeah. So do you have much familiarity with Umberto Eco outside of like this essay?
I mean, no. Weirdly, he did not come up in most of my studies.
Kelly and I were laughing about this because I was going through the Wikipedia page and she's not familiar with him at all. I know the name. I've known the name specifically because of this essay, and I knew that he's big in historical fiction with a philosophical bent. I guess that's my working understanding of him. And as I was like scrolling through the Wikipedia page and reading like, oh, in the 90s he worked with Baudrillard, and then he Derrida considers him a big influence. I was reading this stuff. Kelly and I were just going crazy. Like Kelly was just going crazy. Like, how do I not know Umberto Eco? He's like all the guys cited. I like.
Yeah, he's cited so much.
Yeah,
but he's not the kind of person you read. Weird,
or get assigned maybe in undergrad. I might be at least in our undergrad experies, both
exactly.
Ours.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, kind of the same thing with Gramsci, which he references Gramsci in this, and I was reading it and going, wait, why didn't Paxton reference Gramsci at all?
Interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. I'm sure it might be in a footnote or something, but
yeah, probably. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? No one ever actually assigned Gramsci to me.
Mm-hmm. You sought him out. Yeah.
I had to find him. Like, people were referencing him and I went, hey, I like this. I want to know what's going on here. And then I read and then I was like, oh yeah. I mean, honestly, also, same thing with Rosa Luxemburg.
I was about to say the same thing. All of the Rosa Luxemburg I've read has been on my own volition. I never got, as opposed to like Marx, I got assigned a lot of Marx at one point or another in college, but not Luxemburg.
Yeah, no one ever assigned Luxemburg to me. And then I went, okay, but you guys keep talking about this lady who died in Germany. Let me go look her up. And then I went, oh no, she me.
Yeah, I've been having a great time slowly reading through the biography of her by Nettle. It's really good. It's so good. She's so interesting.
Anyway, no, yeah, this was my first time actually reading Ur-Fascism. I have been in classes where it was referenced, and everyone just sort of like takes it as written, like you all know this. And then there's a bunch of us going, yeah, we read that. Sure.
And, so I never read it either, and I'm really glad that we did, because one, it's really short. Like if you're, I put it in the show notes. You can pause this and read it in like 20 minutes, probably.
Yeah, it's not big.
It's not long. It's publicly available. But it is one that I've heard referenced a lot because there's a lot of phrases from it that are used when talking about fascism a lot. So like, the enemy is simultaneously strong and weak. That's a classic from this one, but what I think is worth actually reading the essay is because he elaborates on all those ideas, and there's lots of interesting stuff he pulls out of that idea that isn't immediately apparent from hearing the phrase, the like selective populism. You hear that phrase, but he does more with it than just the phrase,
All right, man. Hey, what you got? Where are we going to start?
Let's just go through it.
I'm ready.
So I read the first couple paragraphs of it, and then I had to pause and actually just scroll his Wikipedia page for a second, because I was like, oh, maybe I don't know anything about Umberto Eco like I thought I did. Because I just going to read the opening couple paragraphs, because they're really good at setting the stage. In 1942, at the age of 10, I received the first provincial award of Ludi Juveniles. Probably not pronouncing that right, but a voluntary compulsory competition for young Italian fascists. That is, for every young Italian. By the way, you already see his wonderful wit with voluntary compulsory competition. Very good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I elaborated with rhetorical skill on the subject, should we die for the glory of Mussolini and the immortal destiny of Italy? My answer was positive. I was a smart boy. I spent 2 of my early years among the SS, fascists, Republicans, and partisans shooting at one another, and I learned how to dodge bullets. It was good exercise. In April 1945, the partisans took over Milan. 2 days later, they arrived in the small town where I was living at the time. It was a moment of joy. The main square was crowded with people singing and waving flags, calling in loud voices for Mimo, the partisan leader of that area, a former maresciallo of the Carabinieri. Mimo joined the supporters of General Badoglio, Mussolini's successor, and lost a leg during one of the first clashes with Mussolini's remaining forces. Mimo showed up on the balcony of the city hall, pale, leaning on his crutch, and with one hand tried to calm the crowd. I was waiting for his speech because my whole childhood had been marked by the great historic speeches of Mussolini, whose most significant passages we memorized in school. Silence. Mimo spoke in a hoarse voice, barely audible. He said, "Citizens, friends, after so many painful sacrifices, here we are. Glory to those who have fallen for freedom." And that was it. He went back inside, the crowd yelled, the partisans raised their guns and fired festive volleys. We kids hurried to pick up the shells, precious items. But I had also learned that freedom of speech means freedom from rhetoric. Ah, what a beautiful opening.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know that much about a boy who got his leg shut off, so I don't want to be an uncritical defender of him, but that line is completely right. Like,
freedom from rhetoric. The fact, the joy of having a non-charismatic speaker at that moment,
somebody just showing up and be like, "You're free. I'm very hurt. Please go about your lives."
Yeah, and so he kind of details these biographical details. He talks about meeting his first American soldier, who is an African American, and seeing his first images of the Holocaust, and starting to really realize, well, this is what we were liberated from.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of give, only sort of, you can sort of give Italians a pass about World War II and about the Holocaust. You can kind of.
Well, more you can give your average Italian citizen maybe more of a pass of like not knowing what was fully going on.
Yeah. So that's actually, I don't think Echo really gets into this because this sort of stuff must have been going on in Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the industrial level that Germany managed to pull off, but this sort of stuff had to have been happening in Ethiopia and Somalia and those places. And seeing it, I think really had to hurt. And it has to have messed with people.
Well, and I think people, especially Echo's age, especially because, I mean, he didn't really, he's just repeating the propaganda because he's 10 years old. And so really coming to grips with what this era of history meant. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere near as intense, but I think it's similarly for someone my age really dealing with the war on terror era as they get older, where it's like, oh, this was pointless. Oh, this was an imperial war. This was, you know, an illegal war. Under false pretenses.
I think that's actually a really good point because you were a lot younger than me when all of this was happening. I was 14.
You were old enough to start questioning it, right? During that time.
And when it first started, you know, I was basically as bloodthirsty as any other American when it first started, when we went to Afghanistan and stuff like that. I mean, but like by the time we went to Iraq, I was like, okay, but really?
This has nothing to do with it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, but like, come on. And then by the time I went to college, I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. Like, I went through high school going from like, yeah, kill them, to by the end of high school being like, what? No.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it could have been like for other people to grow up in that sort of melange of things. I mean, it was really toxic, and I don't want to cast judgment on people who came out thinking differently from me, but also now we're like all 40 and why are you bad?
Yeah.
You've had a lot of time to stop being shitheads. Like, I get why you were fine with it back when we were children, but
we're adults now. But, you know, on the other hand, it's kind of like, I don't know, the legacy, similar to the way the legacy of World War I impacted the rise of fascism, right? I wonder to what extent there are people who see that as a moment of glory for America that we need to come back to, you know? I wonder to what extent, the war in Iran kind of feels like that, you know?
No, I think that's actually, that's a really, really good point that I had not considered up until now.
But yeah, so then, Echo kind of goes on to explain that, you know, liberation wasn't just a communist thing. It was a common deed for people of different colors, you know, different flag colors, you know, it wasn't just the Reds, you know. He references monarchists who are anti-fascists, etc., right? He talks about how the memory of the War of Liberation is a division in Italian society right now. You know, a lot of people want to just forget it. And, you know, he's okay with some forgiveness for people, but he's not okay with forgetting, is kind of his way of framing it. And he's like, we can't forget what they did. And then he kind of pivots to go, okay, but who are they? Who are the fascists, actually? Let's talk about this.
But I do think that actually, really, we have forgiven and not forgotten in a lot of ways, right? Benito Mussolini's granddaughter is a member of parliament.
Yeah. We forgot to talk about that on that. Well, we ran out of time on the anatomy of fascism, but there's a little bit in that book about that, her kind of rise.
Like, I'm sorry, but that is your family gets to do nothing forever. If we had an actual just world, anyone who was related to Mussolini would not be able to get a job for the rest of their lives. Yeah. That would just be it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's similar to if we had a just world, anyone who was on the Confederate side of the Civil War would not be able to get a job for the rest of their lives.
And if we live in a just world, those who joined ICE during this time will similarly not find employment.
Yes, exactly. Like old boy with his rusty ass hair that we've got on the Discord.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, man, you can quit that job and no one else will ever hire you.
There has to be consequences, but there really weren't, and thus in the 90s, fascism was starting to rise again, which is why it was of interest for a lot of political theorists at this time to start trying to really understand what this is. So, kind of in answering this question, so who are they? Who are the fascists? For Eco, if fascism is just the totalitarian governments we saw before World War II, it doesn't really have the same risk of coming back soon, anytime soon, at least in 95. But if it comes from ways of thinking and feeling certain cultural habits, then there may be another ghost stalking Europe, is how he frames it.
Mm-hmm. Which is a nice turn of phrase.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that. And so, this is interesting to read Eco alongside Anatomy of Fascism because they have very different preoccupations. And so, yes. Eco is dismissing and not really wanting to talk about the question of how they get to power as much as look at the underlying psychology and ideas that build into it, as Paxton wants to disregard the ideas and talk more about their seizing of power. And I think, of course, the correct answer is to look at both. Yes. Paxton was just trying to trying to correct from where things were at the time.
Might you say it's a dialectic?
You just might say. One thing that I like Eco's emphasis on is kind of trying to muse on why fascism became such a broad word while Nazism didn't. He's talking about how the people that went and fought on, the Republican side of the Spanish Civil War, they're considered anti-fascists. Despite, it being kind of ambiguous whether that was kind of proto-fascism. And then on the same time, on the flip side, you'll have somebody who's resisting police brutality in the US will refer to them as fascist pigs. Why are they all fascists? It's such a broad term, but that's not the case with with Nazism, or he points to Stalinism, various totalitarian regimes don't have that same widespread meaning as fascism is the one that represents all of it, kind of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. For most people.
This is a point where I actually sort of agree with Eco over Paxton. Mm-hmm. I think that needlessly drilling down on what is a fascist sort of loses the act, right? Don't tell me what you believe, do what you believe sort of situation. Sure. If you're a fascist, you act like a fascist. And all right, I'll call you a fascist cop if you act like a fascist. And I'll call you a fascist, Franco, if you act like a fascist. I don't really care if you fit all of Robert Paxton's, rules. I still think you were. And you acted like one. So, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and feel okay saying that.
I think the difference is the angle they're coming at it, because I think Paxton is definitely a political theorist and a political historian. And so, he isn't as interested in the motivations or whatever of a fascist in the same way as Eco is writing very much about these underlying impulses and desires and stuff. And so somebody can be a fascist, but in the Paxton sense, not, because they're not seizing power correctly. So they're failing on the political level, but Eco is more looking at the underlying stuff. But so Eco wants to focus on Italian fascism because of how it didn't pull off the totalitarian thing in the same way. It didn't have as coherent a program as Nazism does. And so he actually thinks you can maybe get more at the underlying impulses behind fascism when you look at Italian. And of course, it's the one he knows the best because he grew up under it.
I think this also this part really lines up with Paxton. He says very much Mussolini actually kind of sucked at the job. Not that Hitler was good at it. We don't want any of them to be good at this stuff. But Mussolini basically sucked at the job.
And Mussolini didn't really have a philosophy or ideology. What he had was just rhetoric. And so for Eco, Italian fascism was the first to establish a certain military liturgy, a folklore, even a way of dressing that would come to spring up throughout Europe. It was the first to kind of get all that together in a certain way. And so that's why it's useful to look at it. And it was also, as he says, it was Italian fascism that convinced many European liberal leaders that the new regime was carrying out interesting social reform and that it was a mildly revolutionary alternative to communism.
Yeah, I mean, it's sitting there. It's the kind of thing where it's like, if you're a sort of centrist person who doesn't want to talk about politics or whatever, and then somebody goes like, hey, aren't we all Italians? Don't we just like want the same thing? Like, here we go. Like, and then they just sneak like really racist stuff in there.
Yeah.
And they sneak really authoritarian stuff in there, and they do it, like election after election, and pretty soon you're like, oh, piss, I'm voting for the leopards. Like, that's what happens. That's what has happened here.
Absolutely.
Like all of these people who are just essentially normal, nice people have to reconcile themselves to the fact that they are voting for the leopards that want to eat people's faces. Or admit that they're shitty people, and no one wants to do either of those things.
No, so he goes on to describe fascism in Italy as why it's useful, and I love this turn of phrase. He goes, fascism was a fuzzy totalitarianism, a collage of different philosophical and political ideas, a beehive of contradictions.
Yes, absolutely. Because like look at what's happening now. Again, we've talked about this multiple times now on the show, but like, we are absolutely living in a fascism, and these people can't keep their stories straight in the same fucking day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yes, it is a beehive of contradictory ideas, and they just assume that you're going to go along with it.
Yeah. Italy's also useful because, and this is also why I think it's more useful to think of, to go to Italy to kind of understand what's going on as well right now, is because it had more aesthetic diversity and freedom. And so because of that, it doesn't have the same thing that he points to in like Nazism or Stalinism, where there's like a set like state aesthetic style that's like mandated. There's not that. There's a real diversity of that. And so because of that, you end up with you can get more at all the contradictory impulses that are guiding this thing, all the little artistic expressions that are coming out.
Yeah, because the whole point is motion, doing stuff. Like that is actually the point of fascism. Is like, we're just going to say, no, I don't care. I'm going to do it, and you can't stop me. And actually, weirdly, Italian fascism was the best at that.
At that diversity. And I think there's components of Nazism and Italian fascism you can see in the current moment in different ways. But I think the aesthetic, because there isn't the same political apparatus in the U.S. to like mandate a certain aesthetic style. You're going to get this diversity of aesthetic styles,
I would a little bit disagree with that, because like Donald Trump is trying to do this shit in Washington, putting his face on everything, renaming stuff. And then in the meantime, you've got Nick Fuentes just like being a little gremlin in his mom's basement, that's two very different aesthetics.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, they don't have the ability to mandate one aesthetic in the same way in the US. And so it reflects kind of Italy, because the aesthetic difference between like vaporwave fascism online versus like, I don't know, AI slop stuff you'll see coming from the White House, to like gamer brained stuff, to like more John McNaughton painting, kind of like, they're all part of this aesthetic, but they're all very different aesthetic impulses, know.
But I think they're trying to impose, and they just can't, because it's
a beehive of contradictions.
Well, yeah, and it's, I hate to bring up Thomas Jefferson, but like, they let go of the fucking wolf. Like, the wolf is out and trying to eat them, and they're like, piss.
So he I'm quoting directly from him here. He says, "The contradictory picture I describe was not the result of tolerance, but of political and ideological discombobulation. It was a rigid discombobulation, a structured confusion. Fascism was philosophically out of joint, but emotionally, it was firmly fastened to some archetypal foundations.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can debunk them all we want, but it doesn't matter.
There's an emotional underlying thing that the facts don't really matter to. And so because of the variety of fascisms, Eco uses Wittgenstein's concept of a game to kind of help us understand it, where it's like they're all playing the same game, you know? Is the quick version of this, without opening the Wittgenstein can of worms, because I don't feel confident enough to explain that whole thing. The idea being, you know, there's a family resemblance between these ideas. Eco goes on here to, I like this chunk too. He goes, fascism became an all-purpose term because one can eliminate from a fascist regime one or more features, and it will still be recognizable as fascist. So take away imperialism from fascism and you still have Franco and Salazar. Take away colonialism and you still have Balkan fascism of the Ustashis. Add to the Italian fascism a radical anti-capitalism and you have Ezra Pound. Add a cult of Celtic mythology and Grail mysticism and you have Julius Evola.
Also, man, English people get way too much of a pass about Ezra Pound. Or sorry, Americans, I should say. Ezra Pound. Was an American, but like English speaking people get way too much of a pass about our fash leanings.
Yeah. We have a history of it here.
But I think he's very correct on that. And that is one of those situations where, again, I disagree a little bit with Paxton. Paxton feels like people need to fit a bunch of stuff. And I feel okay just being like, yeah, but that's pretty fascist.
Yeah, you know.
And I think that that's where this essay is sort of identifying, like, nah, it's okay if you just like, hey, man, if they haven't like gotten there already, it's okay for you to just be like, I think that's pretty fascist. We shouldn't let that happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, so from here, despite all this fuzziness, Eco thinks that we can outline a list of features that are fascist and what he calls Ur-Fascism or the eternal fascism. You know?
And I like these a lot.
Yeah. So these are the impulses that kind of the emotional groundwork for fascism. These features can't be organized into a system. They're often contradictory and are also typical of other types of despotism or fanaticism. But it's enough that one of them be present to allow fascism to coagulate around it, which I like. That I still think there's a real coherence between Eco and Paxton here, because we're talking about, I mean, basically Eco's interested in the first stage of fascism, essentially. And then Paxton's about what happens after that. Okay, how do they get to power? You know, and those are different things. Because again, there were tons of fascist movements in Europe, and they all kind of come from this Ur-Fascism that Eco's describing. And then Paxton's like, well, which one's won? That's what he's interested in.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. Also, I really love Eco's turn of phrase there of coagulating. I think that's because also it is a way of talking about things sort of curdling. And you know, sometimes we like stuff to coagulate. That's how we get fucking cheese and all of that stuff. But they coagulate and they curdle and they just get gross.
Yeah.
You know, like people don't like to think about stuff coagulating. Like that is a word that sounds bad. So his turn of phrase there is really, really good. And I think it's a good way to talk about how fascism can sort of grow and materialize. Is it just sort of sits there and looks disgusting, and unless somebody breaks it up, it's going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, on to the points.
And so here we go. We get this list of 14 components of Ur-Fascism. This is the kind of meat of the essay here. So we start off with point 1, which is the cult of tradition. But this is why it's useful to actually read this essay, is he doesn't really leave it at just tradition, though. He's always like, fascism is always a form of syncretism. And that's interesting. It's using these traditionalist elements, but trying to kind of fashion them together into something. It tolerates contradictions because it's sticking these symbols together.
Yeah. Germans talking about being Caucasian when that's people from literally India. What are you talking about?
Or like Aryan. Yeah.
Sorry, Aryans. Like those are people literally from India. What are you talking about? But it doesn't matter.
No, because it's about this mythology that's being built up.
And just tradition is so important. Like it's the kind of stuff that I hate to always bring things back to our country, but I live here, so here we go. But any American being like, World War II, no, and like, what are you talking about? There were people here before your people were. I know that because you look like me. There were people here before that. Like, what are you talking about tradition? What do you mean? Like, this is very contradictory. And also, I think I've said it before on this podcast, but my family is like literally the age of this country old. Mm-hmm. If there's anyone who's got a right to talk about tradition, like it's me, and I think we kind of suck. Like we should be nicer to people. What are you talking about? I don't understand this, but it does pull on people.
Mm-hmm. And it uses all these symbols that do. So like he points at the very fact the Italian right was like citing Gramsci and being like, this is proof of syncretism. And then he has a really good chunk at the end of this part where he goes, if you browse the shelves in an American bookstore labeled New Age stuff, right, you find there even St. Augustine, who, as far as I know, was not a fascist, but combining St. Augustine and Stonehenge, that is a symptom of Ur-Fascism. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Yes. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to go off on a different rabbit trail now. This is why I was always skeptical of left-wing woo-woo people. Like all the time. Like, and we even worked with some of them. And I was just like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think given enough prodding that you will put me in jail.
It can get weird real fast. Like I'd say, in the Fruitless family, Josh Christensen, of course, is the most tolerant of woo, and he will always emphasize it can get weird fast. You have to be grounded if you're engaging in any woo.
Yeah, I have just always been like, I don't know, man. If you really believe that the planets mean anything, I don't know about that.
Yeah. You and I have a pretty strong materialist bias. Like even as someone who identifies as Christian still, I've got a really materialist understanding of Christianity. and yeah.
Yeah. I just like, man, fucking yeah. There is just a part of folks and Eco really, really well identifies that. And also, listen, that's the Bernie to Trump voters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's the Bernie to Trump voters. It essentially is people who were really woo and think that stuff should be better and the system is broken, and then they do that.
Well, I think any attempt at talking about needing some sort of spiritual revival in the country it's not inherently right wing, but it can always be hijacked. You always need to be on the lookout if you're somebody engaging in that rhetoric. Mm-hmm. But so going on to number 2 here, I do like the first few of these start building on each other. So starting now from, traditionalism with that implies the rejection of modernism. So this is kind of what I mean by Ur-Fascism. Like some of these phrases have kind of escaped containment to a point you should really read the essay because, if you go to Ur-Fascism on Wikipedia right now, it'll say number 2, the rejection of modernism. And while that's true that that's what number 2 is in this, he elaborates on it in a way that I think is important because he's like, however, of course, the Nazis loved modernism. There was like all the love of like fast cars and there was that as well. And so the rejection of modernism is really mainly concerned with rejecting the legacy of 1789. And that's important because the modernism that they're rejecting against is not really like industrial modernism or something like that, although they'll try to pull people in who are pissed off about that. But what they're really looking at is the rejection of the Enlightenment, of the Age of Reason, of the revolutionary spirit of like liberal democracy.
It's the rejection of democracy. Essentially, like that's what it is. 1776. I mean, he says it there. 1776, 1789, the French Revolution. It is about it's the rejection of people should have a fucking say.
Yes. And because of that, it sees the Enlightenment, reason, whatever, as the beginnings of modern depravity. So in this sense, Ur-Fascism is proudly a form of irrationalism.
Yeah. Yeah. We like all of the cool stuff that happens, but you don't get any say in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll keep using you to get the cool stuff, but shut up.
And so I like how these first three kind of like work together because, yeah, of course, the Ur-Fascism is necessarily a form of irrationalism because that's also necessary in a syncretism. Because anytime you start analyzing your syncretic stuff, then you have to deal with these symbols actually having contradictory meaning. It has to be openly irrational to work. And so then you get to the third here, which is irrationalism also depends on the cult of action for action's sake. Because, you want to do, you don't want to say. And this is where anti-intellectualism is mobilized, most importantly, because anyone that's trying to actually analyze what you're doing here is getting in the way of doing something.
Yeah. It works on multiple levels. When you're talking about anyone who wants to speak out against you, you can mobilize censorship. If you want to take something over, that's action for action's sake. You just go ahead and do stuff.
You're just doing. You're forging truth by doing.
Yeah. If I say it happens, then that's what it is.
That's what reality is. And in contrast with that, as he quoting him here, he says, thinking is a form of emasculation, to the Ur-Fascist. So number 4 here builds off of those first 3 too. So again, I like how the first half of these start kind of building off each other. So because no syncretic faith can withstand analytical criticism, at least according to Eco, I might have some beef with that in the religious context, but in this context, in the political context, agreed. But since, meshing all these disparate symbols together can't withstand analytical criticism, then it's important to resist any disagreement. Disagreement is treason. So you have to just kind of push this party line or whatever.
Okay. First of all, I do agree with Eco here. I think that this whole thing sort of builds to a crescendo. Mm-hmm. And then it decrescends as we finish the rest of them. But I would like to hear more about you with that syncretic faith situation.
I'm only hesitant about it because when I in college, like my capstone research for history, I was researching religious imagery used in Haiti. So I was studying a lot of voodoo and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so because of that, I'm a little more like, well, they seemed to find a coherence that seemed to work. Whether, I don't know. And it wasn't usually used in this way. There wasn't this the diversity was kind of part of the point at times. And it was more about deriving or applying new meanings to symbols that were being forced upon them by the Catholic establishment at the time. So, finding revolutionary symbols in disparate, in saints by associating them with traditional African traditions and stuff. So I'm a little I don't know if all syncretism is that way always, because just and I think this also just comes from a difference of Eco's an atheist and I'm not. So I think that's ultimately it, is I think something can, kind of develop its own coherence out of using different symbols and stuff. But I think within fascism and with a kind of political faith you're developing, I think he's right that ultimately if you're trying to combine Christian imagery with a cult around militarism or something like that, there's an inherent contradiction that you're always trying to shout down. Because, you know, if you are coming from the Christian tradition, whether you like to admit it or not, you're worshiping a God that arrived on a donkey rather than a white horse and was murdered by the state. So that is contradictory if you want to use the cross as a fascist militarist symbol. So you have to yell at anybody who tries to tell you that Jesus was, you know, an advocate for the weak. You just have to shout him down because there's no winning that argument if you actually engage it on an analytical level.
Yeah, man. I agree with you completely.
Yeah,
thank you. That. But you have to. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sorry, I don't have better words.
I just don't think he had
what you said.
Like African syncretism in mind when he's saying this thing. So that's why I'm adding this caveat. Yeah. But yeah.
But I think the way you put that is absolutely perfect. Actually, that's a really good way for believers to exist in the world. Christians worship a God who got killed by the state.
Yeah,
that's like, this is Almighty God and got killed. That is inherently a contradiction. Yeah. You have to live with that.
Now, obviously, a lot of regimes have found a lot of ways to live with that contradiction, but I mean, you know, that contradiction is a part of the reason that I think Christianity was a big part of me moving to the left, was because I could never reconcile those two things. Yeah. You know?
No. Shoot, man, you made me emotional. It's okay. You know, I love Jesus.
Well, going on to, because, okay, number 5 builds off this even more here, which is that, you know, you have to shout down any disagreement, right? Because disagreement is a sign of diversity, and Ur-Fascism exploits and exacerbates the natural fear of difference.
Yeah. And here, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the last sentence of this one because it is key. Thus, Ur-Fascism is racist by definition.
It will always be racist.
I don't know a better way to just say it. And it's so hard when you're talking to people that are like, you know, kind of sliding that way. It's just like, I don't. No one likes to be called a racist.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
But then you just have to be like, you're being racist. I don't know a better way to say this than that. You are being racist.
Yeah, because fascism inevitably it emerges out of nationalism. You know, not all not all nationalism is fascist, but all fascism is nationalist on some level. And it is always leaning into the exclusionary aspect of fascism.
Yes, exactly.
Not the inclusive, which, again, I still have beefs with nationalism in all its forms, but a nationalism that is like, say, in Italy during the late 19th century or Germany in the late 19th century is concerned with uniting these disparate kingdoms together under one flag.
It's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And also, can you guys not be shitheads?
But eventually that comes to be like, okay, now there are people within our borders who are not of the nationality. And what do we do with those people?
Yes. What do we do with those people? I guess be shitheads to them. Or maybe you could just not. This is always my favorite thing to say anytime somebody is like, I want to do one thing or the other. And it's like, well, you could just not. Doing not is actually the easiest thing to do. Hey, what were you doing? Continue doing that thing.
Yeah.
Don't hurt a person. It's pretty easy to just not hurt a person.
Well, and this is why Hungarian fascism or Hungarian nationalism was a lot more nasty pretty early on, because its real only goal wasn't uniting a bunch of disparate factions. It was just, once it established the goal of like, okay, we have some autonomy against, Austria, then it's about dealing with all the groups that are in Hungary that aren't Hungarian.
Man, all of these people are here.
Yep. It was always going that way. And all nationalism unchecked goes this way. Goes into the exclusionary stuff eventually.
I mean, it also, we've already talked about it, but like that's the the fucking United States. First of all, there were people here.
Yeah, so our nationalism's always incoherent from the
Yes.
beginning because we're a settler colonial state.
First of all, there were people here. Second of all, my people came here. And then we were like, I don't know about you Irish.
Yeah.
And then eventually we're like, well, you're okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
it's I don't know about these Germans, and then eventually the Germans are part of it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
we think it's okay to own people for a while, like it's fine, right? Oh man, I'm gonna sound terrible. This is bad, but like it turns out actually we're all kind of Americans in this stupid hill country.
Yeah. I think one of the only things I really like about America is its multiculturalism, and of course that came out of a lot of historic atrocity that produced it. But nevertheless, is one of the only. Again, Eco's first impression of the Yankees arriving was a black soldier.
Yeah,
and like that
and just being like, oh, that's an American. It's like, yeah, man, that is a fucking American.
Yeah, that's the only thing that gets me some degree of patriotism is this despite where you come from and what what religious traditions you come from or whatever, you can still be American. And that's the thing that I fucking hate about this moment we're living in right now is it is trying to get rid of probably the only good thing about America.
Yes. Well, okay. So here's the thing. World Cup's coming up. Our president is doing his best to ruin it, but U.S. Soccer is doing all of its advertising for the new World Cup, and they've got their new shirts, and everything. And the guy that they are picking to kind of lead the campaign is Diego Luna, a guy who could play for Mexico and is tatted all the way up his neck and is just like, no, man, I'm American.
Yeah.
I love that. I love Moon Boy.
And it pisses me off that's the thing that a lot of people want to remove is our diversity. It's The thing I've always said, because I've never liked the idea of assimilation. I like the idea of integration. We don't, or at least we shouldn't, be like the fucking Borg and make them all like us. Yeah.
What we should do is be like, all right, you've got your way of doing stuff. We've got our way of doing stuff. We can all hang out. This is fine. Like, that is so much better. That's just like, because, man, shit, I wouldn't have eaten half of the food that I have eaten.
Yeah.
If I wasn't around people who weren't like me. Like, you're missing out on so much if you insist on, tradition and like, again, all of this racist bullshit that Eco very correctly identifies in fascism. Like, we wouldn't have any of that. It's more fun to live in a diverse world. And I don't get it.
This actually moves us nicely into 6 here because think about it. Okay, so then if America, one of its unique components is multiculturalism or whatever, how do you mobilize people into a fascist movement then? Well, it's an appeal to a frustrated middle class, a class suffering from an economic crisis or feeling of political humiliation and frightened by the pressure of lower social groups. So what do? You need to mobilize those who did get the spoils of the post-war order and were able to, live nice middle class and, settings or whatever. They are now living through the recession, through the self-made recession we are now kind of diving into with AI and the war with Iran. And, you take advantage of those economic things and you do the classic thing. You point to these people that have arrived over the last couple decades and say, they are taking from you.
Yeah, it's their fault, not mine.
Yeah. Of course, Paxton does complicate this picture for us, which is why I also appreciate Paxton's work here, because it's not just the middle class that, of course, makes a fascism work.
It's also the lower class.
Yep. You still do need to mobilize some of the lower class.
It has to go all the way through
all the tiers of society need to get mobilized. Yeah.
The strata of society.
So he says right here in a really nice way, Eco goes, in our time when the old proletarians are becoming petty bourgeois, the fascism of tomorrow will find its audience in this new majority. He called it,
Yeah,
like,
he did.
Yep.
Fully.
And the people that are receiving the spoils of the post-war order, they will be the clientele for this in the coming decades.
I think that this is something that that John Gans wrote about, and also something that I have sort of taken on is like the idea of even in kind of the hinterlands, your local car dealership owner. I mean, they're not rich, but they're rich for you.
Yeah, they're better off than I'm doing, and they also feel a sense of fear of their own property. I have only had a gun pointed at me once in my life, luckily enough, and you know who it was?
Was it a car dealership?
It was a car dealership owner during one of the Black Lives Matter protests. Because we were marching up Merle Hay in Des Moines, and some of the car dealerships on that positioned themselves on top of the roofs and pointed guns at us. So, like, it's that is the
sorry,
class. You know what I mean?
I'm a little bit breathless. That's nuts. I know that you have told me about marching in those. And I know that you have showed me pictures, and Kip has shown me pictures. But that is nuts. Just it is. I think that it is a worthwhile thing to talk about, and I think that a lot of left-wing thought does not do a good enough job of dealing with the progression of the poor into the middle class. Once you attain some sort of stability, you're very jealous of that being taken away from you.
Yeah.
And it can be easy to then mobilize you against poor people.
Yep. People that might take what you want,
Exactly. You can think to yourself, I got out of this. Why can't they? Now, I think that that's bullshit, and nobody should be poor, but we live in a world that creates poor people. And anyway, I think that it's a very useful crowbar for the right to use, and something that I think the left needs to be more cognizant of when it talks about society. Like, hey, we're not trying to make you poorer. We're trying to make these folks live like you, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, here we go. On to 6.
To 7.
Here.
Yeah. So because, fascism is relying on nationalism as its social identity, the only thing that can really provide an identity to a nation are its enemies. And so therefore there is always an obsession with a plot, with some sort of group that is trying to undermine, the nation, and therefore you know?
Yeah. I mean, this is essentially the Dreyfus affair, you know. That was basically fascism getting a dry run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where the use of, like, the function of anti-Semitism in fascism is here. They serve as the plot. And in the U.S., that can sometimes be Jews, but it's also Muslims often, I think, or just in general, like what Somalis, various immigrant groups.
Well, but like everyone just codes Somalis as Muslims. You can say Somali, but what they really mean is Muslims. Okay, so this last week when we were in Georgia, we were talking about current events, and one of my in-laws said, like, well, I mean, these Iranians, they say, death to America, like that's just crazy. And I went, well, first of all, they don't all think that. Like, that's crazy. There are 100 million people in that country. You cannot possibly believe that every Iranian wants us to die. And second of all, Americans think that Muslims should die. And then everyone was like, no.
I'm sorry. I grew up during the War on Terror era. I'm very fucking aware of this.
Yes. And they were like, I don't know anyone who wants Muslims to die. And I went, there is a sitting member of Congress who said on camera that a Muslim person cannot be American, and they said it last week.
Yeah.
Like, there are American. I'm glad for you that you don't know anyone that hateful, but you cannot act like there aren't Americans who think that Muslims should die. Like, that is crazy.
I mean, the phrase "turn the Middle East to glass" was a phrase thrown around when I was growing up. You know what I mean? I just don't buy that.
I was a freshman in high school when 9/11 happened. I heard a lot of wild stuff.
Yeah. And acting like that's not part of America right now is just bullshit. It's just bullshit.
I heard a lot of wild stuff. There are a lot of Americans who would be totally fine if every Muslim died. And that is wild. And that means that it's kind of bullshit for you to say anything about Iranians saying death to America.
Yeah,
and they don't all believe that. They don't all believe that, and you don't all believe that. Shut up.
They don't all believe that, and two, like, yeah, I mean, when you bomb them, you know, like that's going to be a thing people will say. I mean, if you were to justify, which I don't think you should, but if you were to try to justify the Islamophobia in the U.S., it was after 9/11. You know, it was in response. It was the desire for revenge. What do you think, that other people don't have that impulse?
Yes.
Like,
we just blew up a fucking school. Of course they want to kill us.
Yes. It is natural for someone to want revenge in that situation.
Yes,
and like,
absolutely.
And like, as Americans, if you grew up during the War on Terror era, you know that. Because you saw the entire American apparatus mobilize and kill like 1 million people or more in the Middle East because of one attack.
Yes, so many people.
I'm probably about to cut this too, just because this might be a little too spicy to have sitting out there. But I mean, I'll just say, Iran's restraint, frankly, is admirable.
Yes, they could have done so much. Oh, yeah, you are correct, man. They could have been absolutely bombarding the piss out of Israel
for years now.
For years, and they haven't. Honestly, okay, so here's some more spicy. Same thing for North Korea.
Yeah,
I've got no love for either of these countries, but North Korea allegedly has a nuclear bomb's worth of artillery targeted at Seoul and has not shot it.
Yeah. I mean, and what we did to Korea. I mean, genuinely, what we did to Korea. You know, it's being deliberated whether it should be considered a genocide.
Yeah.
You know,
Iran's situation, Korea's situation, the fact that Vietnam just is like, hey guys, come on over.
Yeah.
Now, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
That is a miracle.
I mean, not to mention, I mean, if we're getting really off topic here, but not to mention the U.S. Directly going against Vietnam intervening in Cambodia. I mean, the shit we've done to the rest of the world, the fact that we don't receive a reign of terror against us is a miracle and speaks to
yes, everything in Central and South America. I mean, this was a thing that I was trying to say to my in-laws. It was just like, you guys, do you not realize how many times we have just like invaded a country and put someone evil in charge? Do you like not know that? No, we don't know. And I was like, fuck, shit, face. Like, oh God. What? You just don't know?
God, it drives. I don't think a lot of people really know the history here.
You know, and
why people hate us around the globe.
And then like another thing was just was them talking about like, well, they could have a nuclear weapon. I was like, do you know the only country in the world that has ever used a nuclear weapon
is us?
Us. We're the only people who've ever fucking done it. What do you mean? They all, like, everybody else should be afraid of us. Yeah. What do you mean? Why are you afraid of anyone else? We're the only ones who've done that. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, coming back to the essay now. No, you're good.
Yeah.
But this builds off kind of whatever aspects of that conversation end up in the final edit. And this will still build off of it nicely. So, well, from there we go on to number 8, which is, I think, one of the most quoted chunks from Ur-Fascism, which is that the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak.
Mm-hmm. Englishmen are 5-meal people.
Yes. Yeah, that was what the Italian fascists would talk about the Englishmen. They're 5-meal people. You know, the Jews are rich and help each other through a secret web of mutual assistance. You know, they're so strong as opposed to the poor, Italians. However, as he says, the followers must be convinced that they can overwhelm the enemies. And then this is why you should read the essay rather than just have these quotes. Because again, the most quoted part of this book, I didn't know this final chunk that is really insightful for the present. Thus, by a continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. Fascist governments are condemned to lose wars because they are constitutionally incapable of objectively evaluating the force of the enemy. And here we are in the middle of how many weeks of war with Iran that was supposed to take a week long. And also, Iran is the puppet master behind the entirety of the Middle East, right? Supposedly at the same time, both. You're supposed to be able to be toppled in a week and also, are the puppet masters.
Well, okay. And also, that was only supposed to be 3 days and Russia is still in Ukraine.
So, yeah, similarly, right? Ukraine will be a quick war, and also it's the one that's secretly, controlling the EU or whatever, it's absolutely.
No, but, what about second breakfast? Except they were fucking rationing until the 50s.
Yeah, the British were not eating.
They were not having a good time.
No. But that's the thing, yeah, because of that, the fascist governments are always condemned to lose wars because they're always, engaging in a rhetorical battle and aren't able to objectively understand what advantages or disadvantages their military opponent has. Because they're playing a rhetorical game, Yeah. And unfortunately, military exchange relies on objective reality. So rhetoric doesn't work here anymore,
Yeah, and exactly. Rhetoric doesn't work. They keep trying to build these super weapons, but super weapons don't win a war. People do.
Logistics do. Yeah. The amount of oil you have does. These things are the things that decide wars.
The ability to take and hold land is what wins a fucking war, which the United States has apparently forgotten. No. I don't like any of the wars that the United States has gotten in since World War II. I think we should have just kept our fucking nose out of all of them. But we didn't actually do it like you should, which is you go and you hold it.
Yeah.
You send a shitload of people there.
And you occupy.
it.
But we know that how disastrous that was in Iraq. And so that's why they're trying to not do it again.
Well, no, we didn't actually do that in Iraq or Afghanistan. We didn't actually do that. We tried to do little thingies off occupation.
Yeah, privatized occupation, if you will. Yeah.
What you need to do is what we did in Germany and Japan. That sounds terrible, but that's how you win a fucking war.
Well, and doing that, to Germany or Japan, was a very complicated, difficult, and brutal on everyone involved process.
So much time and so much stuff.
It's only worth it when you're doing something like rooting fascism out of a country. It's not worth it when you're just a little fucking pissed at Iran.
Yeah, I'm just a little mad at you. I'm gonna shoot some missiles, you little shits, and then they go, no. Hey, I guess we have a new leader.
Yep.
Have some fun. We're going to throw some drones at you and blow up some radar in Qatar. What was all this for? This is stupid.
Well, we go on to 9 here, which is that, pacifism is trafficking with the enemy because life is permanent warfare. This is also really insightful here. Maybe I'll just read this whole chunk here because so if life is permanent war and therefore pacifism is trafficking with the enemy, this brings about an Armageddon complex. Since enemies have to be defeated, there must be a final battle, after which the movement will have control of the world. But such a final solution implies a further era of peace, a golden age, which contradicts the principles of permanent war. No fascist leader has ever succeeded in solving this predicament. Because if you win the war, you enter in an era of peace, and then that era of peace is decadent. It's
the same problem as the syncretism.
Yeah.
Right. You have to constantly keep fighting.
Right.
There's no way to not exist without a fight.
Yeah, for these kind of regimes. Yeah.
I mean, I fully agree with Eco's conclusion on that one. Like, yeah, there's no struggle for yeah, sure. If you're that kind of a dickhead,
absolutely,
then that's how the world is. I think that it's fully possible for a person to be a pacifist and think that, like, no, I'm not going to hurt people. And I also think that it's possible for me to be a person like me who goes, well, I don't want to hurt people, but there are some people I would hit. and I think that's fine.
Well, because someone like this isn't someone you can negotiate with, because life is permanent war. That
doesn't do anything for me internally.
Pacifism, except for against people who believe life is permanent war, in which case you gotta win a war against them. Sorry.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. If I see a swastika on you, I'm gonna hit you. Like, you did that to yourself.
Okay, we go on to number 10 here. This is another one that I think the kind of simplified version of it is not as good as the whole chunk. It's worth it just to read the whole chunk, because the one that the 10 is usually just called Contempt for the Weak, which feels a little like, okay, yeah, I know fascists hate the weak. But there's a way more in this about mass elitism that I think is really interesting. Okay. So the idea here is that, elitism is typical for any reactionary ideology, but Ur-Fascism has to advocate a popular elitism. Every citizen belongs to the best people of the world. The members of the party are the best among the citizens. Every citizen can become a member of the party. But there cannot be patricians without plebeians. In fact, the leader, knowing that his power was not delegated to him democratically, but was conquered by force, also knows that his force is based upon the weakness of the masses. They are weak as to need and deserve a ruler. Since the group is hierarchically organized, every subordinate leader despises his own underlings, and each of them despises his inferiors. This reinforces the sense of mass elitism. So that's I think really essential to this, is like, this is what it looks like when you're mobilizing elitism in a popular way, rather than in just like elitism of the ruling class. Everybody is the king of their own fiefdom, you know?
Yeah, no, I think this is Eco sort of building upon himself as he goes. There's no pacifism. There's like, as he goes, he is saying, like, syncretism, it has to exist, and they're fighting against it constantly. All of this stuff sort of builds on itself. Like, I hate these people, but I need them.
Yep. And that produces contempt.
Yes, and they need to have this slight idea that they could come up.
Yep, and that they've got their own underlings that they have contempt for. Yep.
There's always someone below them. This was always something that I hated about being a manager.
Yeah,
was just, okay. Well, I know my life sucks. The least I can do is make your life not suck. As much as I can.
As without getting too much into it, a job I've recently rage quit.
Oh no.
But the culture in that workplace environment was one in which management really reveled in and enjoyed being in charge of those under them. You know what I mean? That's what that environment looks like. You know what I mean? Is managers are always put in a position. I guess in a service environment, it doesn't necessarily fall into the professional managerial class, but I still think Ehrenreich's idea of that is.
No, that's right.
It's still useful though, because her whole thing was that they occupy a weird class position, managers do, where they are both kind of like loyal to the proletariat and loyal to the petty bourgeois or the bourgeois, owners of the business, and they have to kind of choose their allegiance. And I, was in a workplace where a lot of people chose their allegiance toward corporate, and they really enjoyed the wielding of power and the arbitrary firing of people and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Shit, dude. I'm sorry, man. That's
all good. It's all good. I mean, I've got other jobs, I've got the AV jobs that are coming in. So I'll survive. I'm doing some DoorDash while I figure it out.
I told you that I rage quit the job at because the owner came in and was rude to everyone. And I went, fuck you, I quit. I just left. Because that was always my thing. Is like, I'm not going to yell at anyone unless they're doing something dangerous. And I'm not going to allow the owners to demean my workers. Because, listen, like you said, you have to pick. And I always picked the workers. Or at least I tried to. I wouldn't yell at anyone unless they were doing something actively dangerous. And then I was on the bar, and he came in and was just rude to literally every single person except me. And I was like, nah, man, I quit. Fuck you. And I walked out.
Yeah. That's the weird class position that managers are put in there, I guess, is whose side you take. Yeah.
No, you're totally right. It is a weird class position for sure. Because it sucks. It really sucks.
I think that a lot of my being fed up with that workplace while reading Anatomy of Fascism was kind of a weird thing to happen at the same time. So I was really thinking a lot about the way in which
this guy's a fascist.
And not in the sense of most of the people that work there have liberal-ish politics. Like that was where they leaned, but everybody really liked the wielding of arbitrary authority. And it's something I think a lot about, where I think you can see the essence of a lot of American fascism in the managerial class if you work service jobs. You can see a lot of the impulses that can be mobilized into a fascist movement in the way people treat the workers below them.
Yes, no, 100%. And also because they are rewarded for doing that.
Exactly.
There's no way better to say this. Being a bad person gets you further.
Yep.
And so just being a shithead to your workers is better for you. And I don't know. I think that's bad. I think that's bad. I prefer to be nice to the people who work for me. For my own conscience and for their mental stability.
Yeah, and the coherence of the workplace, because I think you can see that workplaces go into disorder when the managers are wielding arbitrary authority. Every workplace I've been in that sucked, it was always kind of rooted in that, It never makes the workers better. It never makes them start showing up on time when you crack down and start being arbitrary. It doesn't fix the problems ever.
They never fucking get it. When you talk to the owners and you say hey, this thing is not working. Can we do another thing? They never fucking get it. Being mean to someone gets you immediate compliance. It does not get you a person who gives a shit, and it does not give you someone who will stay and have fun at the job. That is not what happens. It is always, genuinely, it is always better to give critical feedback, but kind feedback. And then you keep that worker, and then they stay. And you know what happens when they stay? That means you don't have to hire someone else and fucking train them. You just have someone who knows what the hell they're doing all the time. And you just, if they make a mistake, you say, hey, wrong thing. Don't do that.
Yep.
Right? And unless they're really doing something wrong, you don't ever have to raise your voice at them. You just go, hey, do you need an extra set of hands? Like, hey, what's going on? Let's work together on this. We'll be all right. Here we go. Let's knock this out. It'll be all right. Being mean to people does not make them work better. It makes them work better
in the moment, maybe.
For 30 minutes because they're scared of you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually make them a better worker. There's no reason to just be mean. Sorry.
Well, returning to the essay, but
sorry. That's my whole, like, and it's why I quit my old job.
I think a lot of my political views and class consciousness was really formed in service work. I think a lot of my political perspective comes from service jobs.
Yeah, doing your job and also interacting with customers, because also customers, this is another thing. Customers fucking suck.
Well, okay, and this is related though, because I think that customers suck because in the personal fiefdom of their own life, the customer service worker that you are engaging with is someone you get to wield authority over, because the American culture around service work is that they get to be your like paid servant for a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Which isn't even the same in other parts of the world. It's very, very much an American phenomenon.
I shouldn't say that customers suck, because you sometimes have regulars who are wonderful people and you love hanging out with. But then there are just some people who just like walk in wanting to pick a fight with you.
Well, and it's because it's this trickle down of domination that takes place. They get off their job at, insert insurance company or whatever, where they've had some fuckhead breathing down their throat the whole day. They've been getting yelled at by their manager for, not filing enough documents or whatever. And then they show up at their, at the bar or at the coffee shop or whatever. And now they get to boss someone else around. No, you make the latte this way. No, you make the drink this way, because this is their bit of power they get,
Yeah. This is the one bit of control in their life that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is why you always have the contempt for the person below you, the contempt for the weak, because it's necessary to mobilize a popular elitism like that to maintain a fascist regime.
Man, I just cannot imagine being that kind of person. I don't know if you heard any of that, but man, Jesus says to love people. What the fuck? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it.
From there, we go on to number 11 here, which feels related to what we've been talking about, but different. In Ur-Fascist ideology, everybody is educated to become a hero. I really like this part here. And because of that, heroics are linked with the cult of death. And so the Ur-Fascist is always craving heroic death. He is impatient to die. I really like the way he phrases this too, because he's like, in non-fascist societies, the lay public is told that death is unpleasant but must be faced with dignity. Believers are told that it is the painful way to reach a supernatural happiness. But in fascism, the hero craves heroic death. It's the reward for the heroic life is the heroic death.
I also really love the last sentence of this point, because again, so just Eco is very smart and very clever. In his impatience, he more frequently sends other people to death. Ultimately, these people are cowards. Mm-hmm. Like, I think death is awesome. You should all die. You, not me. You.
Yep. But they're espousing this impatience to die. But of course, as humans, we do not desire to die naturally. That's something that is, pushed upon us oftentimes.
Yeah. No, oof.
Well, I
think we're doing it now.
I really like this chunk because I think sheds some light onto the like weird suicide impulse among like right wingers too. Like there's the weird love of like that image of the penguin going off into the mountains to die, and they love that. Or like who's the guy that like crashed the plane for no fucking reason, and they love him and consider him a hero. Or the killdozer guy, you know, like stuff like that. It is an impulse towards suicide, the heroic death, you know.
Even on the other hand, there's I'm not going to actually say his name because I just remembered it, but it's that dude who has like a lot of muscles and he hits himself in the fucking face.
Oh, yeah.
To make, you also know who he is. Nah, God damn it. We said his name. Don't say his name, man. I don't want people to know about him. But yeah, like they hit themselves in the, what is wrong with you?
I think, if you want to be able to dismiss him really, if you want to dismiss that guy pretty easily, I recommend just, listening to the interview with Adam Friedland he did. And that, I think what that was perfect about was Friedland just being very like, what? And kind of just trying to make him elaborate on himself. And there's a like 2 or 3 studio audience, like just Friedland's friends cackling in the background the whole time. And that's all that deserves. You know what I mean? Is him trying to straight facedly explain his ideology while people are cackling.
So the absolute opposite of that was, some guy wrestled and beat his ass and got him to tap out. And he went, mog that. just absolutely wrecked him and had him held until he like tapped.
That's it. That's what you got to do with fascists, you know?
Yes, it's one or the other. It's be like, no, what? Or I'm going to kill you. Anyway.
Well, this gets related. This is another one of my favorite chunks that I think I'm just going to read verbatim because it's so good.
Great.
Number 12 here
12,
about machismo. This is where he gets gender with it. It's so good.
No, this is 100% on point.
Yeah.
Eco is all the way correct on this one.
So, since both permanent war and heroism are difficult games to play, the Ur-Fascist transfers his will to power to sexual matters. This is the origin of machismo, which implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. Since even sex is a difficult game to play, the Ur-Fascist hero tends to play with weapons. Doing so becomes a phallic exercise. Yep.
Yeah, man, I don't have like a ton to say about that, except since even sex is a difficult game to play. Bro, have you tried being nice?
I love that line though, because that's the clavicular thing we're talking about too, right?
Yeah.
There is perfectly, because that's the fascism now trying to be applied to sexual matters.
Yeah.
And it's also, people find it off-putting and weird. And so eventually, when clavicular, if he continues the path, we'll start playing with guns eventually. That's where it goes.
Yeah, 700%.
Hey everyone, this is Josiah from the future editing the episode right now. I just wanted to read a headline for you. It comes from the Tampa Bay Times. Online influencers shoot more than 25 bullets at Florida Everglades gator. Yes, this is about clavicular.
But like, again, it's like, have you tried being nice?
Yeah. Well, because if you don't believe in permanent war and the need to be a fucking hero, it's really not that hard. I mean, this was the Adam Friedland thing on that whole interview where he's just like, I don't know, like sometimes a girl likes you because you're funny. Like,
yeah. Yes, exactly. Sometimes a girl likes you because you told her. This is literally how me and Kim got together. Is I met her and I thought she was cool, and I said, "Hey, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And then I talked to her the next day.
Yeah,
I did what I said I would do.
Kelly and I were both history. Not that hard. Kelly and I were both history majors, and we liked talking about history together.
Yeah.
That was how we got, started as friends, and then that became a romantic relationship eventually, right? Like it's not that hard, guys.
Yeah, just be fucking normal and kind. It's not difficult.
I'm fat as shit, dude. It's fine. Like, he does not really kneecapped me much, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
women are also people. If you
it's crazy.
if you treat a woman like a you, it'll be okay.
Yeah,
this isn't difficult.
If you just don't have a worldview that's motivated primarily on seeing everything as war and power struggle and your opportunity to show yourself as a hero standing above the corpses of your enemies, if you get rid of that and just are a chill hang, you'll be fine.
And I know that sounds very difficult to you, but like, listen, guys.
It's not.
But like, listen, guys, I wake up every morning and think, damn, I'm still me.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll get through today.
That's it.
Here I am. It's really, again, it's the difference between doing something and not doing something. Well, it's very easy to not do things.
I think a lot of the incel and looks maxing stuff or whatever too really I think doesn't know how to navigate embarrassment very well, and none of us do, right? It's unpleasant. No. It's not a fun part of the human experience, but like, it's not the end of the world to embarrass yourself. And I think a lot of them treat it that way. And so it's like, how you navigate getting out of inceldom or whatever is you need to go and have some messy interactions with people where you'll probably embarrass yourself and you'll learn what is the socially correct way to act versus not act. And it's a process, and it's an uncomfortable process. That's why a lot of us do it in middle school and high school, and why we have miserable memories of that time. Yeah. But you get through it. You get through it,
I also think, so another thing that really makes me sad is that the whole idea of incel, that term was started by a woman.
Yeah, it was a trans woman, right? Kind of talking about.
Well, I don't know about that, but it was a woman who just wasn't pulling.
Yeah.
And she wanted to have sex, but she wasn't. And so then she like kind of created this term, involuntarily celibate. And the whole idea was for it to be sort of this, like almost a Alcoholics Anonymous type situation. Like people could be like, hey, I just need like a pick me up, here we go. And then it got taken over, as all internet things ever get taken over, by the worst people in the world.
Right. Well, because I'm just looking at Wikipedia now. So I don't believe she was trans, but I think she was bi. Okay. I think I just heard people say she was a queer woman, and that's how I took it. But regardless, it was more like, how do I overcome my shyness and work on not being involuntarily celibate anymore?
How can people like me and want to have sex with me? Because I would like to have sex, but it's not happening.
But I'm awkward or whatever. Yeah. But, then as right-wingers from 4chan and stuff started taking it over, it started to be a very, and this is where it feeds into one of the threads of fascism in America right now, really comes out of inceldom, as you see in the looks maxing stuff or whatever, is a biological determinism. I cannot have sex because I do not have a fucking symmetrical face or whatever. And it's actually, there is a number you can apply to me that is where I rank on the hierarchy that exists naturally of attractiveness.
Yeah.
And that is the only thing.
So I can't pull anything.
Yes. And it's just, like, that is a way to doom yourself socially to think that way. Yeah. And the fascist is always doomed socially on some level, I think, because of this. Unless their movements take power, in which case they get to kind of enjoy the social liturgy that they get to be part of for a while.
Yeah, until we kill them.
Or until they kill each other.
No, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I completely agree with you. I mean, like, listen, man, I kicked up.
Yeah.
Kim is a lot better looking than I am.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have the same way. I used to make jokes about that on my, like when I did it stand up too, was like everyone I've dated's been way hotter than me, like that's just, it's fine. Like
turns out being an okay person.
Pays off.
Yep. Ladies like a not shitty dude.
Yeah, turns out.
There's a hint for all you guys.
Well, back to the essay here. We go on to, 2 more here. So number 13, which I think is a really, really important one. Actually, this one, my jaw hit the floor. Because I've seen the phrase, again, the phrase from this one where it gets simplified is selective populism. Sure.
Do you want me to just go ahead and read this whole one?
Okay. The first paragraph of it is what because that ending of that first paragraph is where my jaw hit the floor. So,
okay. Ur-Fascism is based on a selective populism, a qualitative populism, one might say. In a democracy, the citizens have individual rights, but the citizens in their entirety have a political impact only from a quantitative point of view. One follows the decisions of the majority. For Ur-Fascism, however, individuals as individuals have no rights, and the people is conceived as a quality, a monolithic entity expressing the common will. Since no large quantity of human beings can have a common will, the leader pretends to be their interpreter. Having lost their power of delegation, citizens do not act. They are only called on to play the role of the people.
This is where it gets, this is the essential part, is where you're getting right here. So yes, they have to play the role of the people.
Thus, the people is only a theatrical fiction. To have a good instance of a qualitative populism, we no longer need the Piazza Venezia in Rome or the Nuremberg Stadium. There is our future a TV or internet populism, in which the emotional response of a selective group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice of the people.
There we go. In 1995.
Bro called Facebook.
Yeah. Or Twitter /X, right? You know,
Yeah.
and I think it's actually really insightful to how we think about the function of social media with fascism right now. Is it is replacing what was the big grand Nuremberg Stadium and stuff like that,
Yeah.
where the people play their theatrical role, to be the common will that the leader's interpreting. Now the leader is interpreting the will of the people via posts, by what the people online are saying in response to their decision.
No, I think I think that's totally right. It's also part of the reason that I really love going to sports, actually.
Yeah.
Because we don't do that many things where we're all together anymore. But going and watching a game is a thing that we all do together now. Anyway. Absolutely.
It's one way that still exists. But that alienation we've kind of seen, grow in our society. It's perfect for fascism to use the internet, because that's where you can get a collective out of disparate individuals who are pissed off and unhappy with their own personal lives and with the existing order and whatever.
And pissed off correctly. Like, they're not wrong. The world does suck.
They're often wrong. They're usually wrong of what they're identifying as the reason for that.
Yeah. They're mad at the wrong thing, but they're not wrong for being mad.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I mean, shit. Like I said, old boy called it, like, damn. But like, without strong moderation, like internet. I mean, we've talked about this before, about the way that just internet pleases without somebody coming in to just like hit the ban hammer and say no, leave. Like, they just tend towards toxicity.
And that toxicity is the masses, for the fascist regime. I think of when they're doing military strikes or whatever, like the way that like Kash Patel or like various regime figures will like look at the posts. I think was it Venezuela where they had all the X posts on a big screen that they were looking at in the situation room.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
That was They're like, checking to see how people like think about them. What are you just kidnapped someone? What are you talking? What?
And in that situation,
how do you care what Twitter thinks?
Right, but they're there to interpret the people and the common will.
I have, you might have to cut this out too, but I have never seen a person who looks more high than Kash Patel.
Oh my God. Yeah,
that dude looks high every... He is zooted to the moon every second he is awake. I've never seen a higher person than Kash Patel. Anyway. Right. On and the 14,
the last one here.
Here we go. Some George Orwell.
Here's the Orwell. Ur-Fascism speaks Newspeak. So Newspeak was invented by Orwell in 1984, in the book 1984, as the official language of Ingsoc, English socialism. But elements of Ur-Fascism are common to different forms of dictatorship. All the Nazi or fascist school books made use of an impoverished vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. But we must be ready to identify other kinds of newspeak, even if they take the apparently innocent form of a popular talk show. Very good. That's very good.
But also, fake news?
I mean, frankly, it fucks with me sometimes thinking the degree that Trump has actually changed the English language. There's a lot of phrases that I use that are Trumpisms now, you know?
Well, but also, I mean, we did that with Bush
too. Yeah.
And we also did that with Obama.
Let me be clear.
I'm not trying... I'm not trying to let anybody off the hook here. Nobody can be the head of a nation state without warping reality around them. But I do think, you're right. The extent to which this administration has, seriously, you're right. Just changed English
and reality,
we talk different now because of that asshole.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think intellectual conversations have been made more difficult in the last decade because of the impact that it's had. At least in my personal experience, I've seen that. Like, it's more and more difficult to talk about complicated or nuanced things without it being turned into simplified extremes, because that's how the regime speaks, you know?
Yeah, unless it's someone that I feel extremely safe talking around. I just don't. And I'm sure that you feel that as well. But yeah, it's definitely okay, I guess we're talking about sports.
Sports is like, the kind of safe ground, although they keep politicizing it.
Well, yeah. That's one of those things, like you'll be talking about sports and then they'll be like, and then they did the flyover and be like, I am not talking about the flyover.
Nope, dodging that one.
No, they had the flag and not everyone was saluting the flag. Shut up, Chris. Shut up.
We're not talking about that. No, we were talking about how good of a football player Colin Kaepernick
just
is.
Sitting here going,
we're not talking about Colin Kaepernick's political.
Yeah, just sitting here going, John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave.
Well,
it's like, it's genuinely like you can only talk about sports, because it's like, well, if we talk about anything else, like, I am gonna want to fight you and you're gonna want to fight me. Yep. I don't like that.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, like the images of like the Vikings have become like really politicized because of the occupation of Minneapolis. You know what I mean? And that's been kind of annoying, where it's just like, I mean, well, one, I am proud to be a Vikings fan if it's going to be associated with the resistance to ICE, but like on the other hand, it's annoying to be like, I just want to talk about like we've been in a rough situation with our quarterback. I don't want to talk about us having a male cheerleader with you. I don't want to do this. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to talk about
this is not a problem. Shut up.
I don't give a shit. I'm sorry. I'm not watching the dance routines between plays, bud. I don't know what your
Why are you?
Why are you so obsessed with this?
I thought this was about watching a football game. Why do you care about the cheerleaders? I hear. Yeah. Why do you care about the cheerleaders?
Well, so those are the 14, and then he kind of goes into a nice little closer here.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's like kind of close to that first they came for the communists, yada yada. It's actually pretty close to that, like
Yeah.
in sentiment.
Yeah. And I do like this moment he talks about in 1943 when Mussolini was arrested and he went to get the newspaper. And for the first time, he was seeing that there were more than just one political party in Italy, realizing there were other political traditions, that this one didn't run. Reality did not bend around fascism.
Through one voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Democrazia Cristiana, the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the Partito d'Azione, and the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Azione. Yeah. And I also like this chunk here. We must keep alert so that the sense of these words will not be forgotten again. The sense of the words freedom, liberty, dictatorship, those words. Ur-Fascism is still around us, sometimes in plain clothes. It would be so much easier for us if there appeared on the world scene somebody saying, I want to reopen Auschwitz. I want the black shirts to parade again in the Italian squares. But life is not that simple. Ur-Fascism can come back under the most innocent of disguises. Our duty is to uncover it and point our finger at any of its new instances every day in every part of the world. Franklin Roosevelt's words of November 4th, 1938 are worth recalling, quote, I venture the challenging statement that if American democracy ceases to move forward as a living force, seeking day and night by peaceful means to better the lot of our citizens, fascism will grow in strength in our land. So, yeah.
FDR was right about a lot of things. And, Eco is right there too. Sort of like what we were saying earlier, like nobody wants to get called a racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very few people identify as racists or as fascists anymore.
Yeah, so they're smart enough not to say the N-word, and nobody wants to get called a fascist, so they're smart enough to run the country.
Yeah,
but it's okay for us to just call it by its name. Like, we've got fascism, we let it fester. Mm-hmm. Kind of sucks.
It sucks.
Honestly, kind of sucks. And what we need to do is get it out of here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not entirely sure how we do it, but we do need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's where I am. That's not a very positive way to end it, but yeah.
No, I think that's where we're at. Is these are the passions or the kind of ideas that have been mobilized right now, and we need to fight them in whatever way that looks like. And I leave that open ended to the listeners of this show.
Yeah, and we need to understand the ways in which we allowed a society to, just like Eco was talking about, and just like Paxton was talking about, these sort of the fertile ground. How do we let the ground become such that people would think that this was okay? Like, again, we fought multiple wars about this.
Yeah.
We did a civil war and 2 world wars about this. Like, we shouldn't have to keep answering this question. So we need to make sure that the ground is actually fertile in beautiful ways that people want to live in and enjoy their life in. We don't want to make a ground that is full of thorns that people hurt themselves on and end up spiting. Mm-hmm. We want life. We want joy. Mm-hmm. That's what we should be after.
Life is not permanent war.
No, it's not.
And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't have to be. Yeah.
Life is fun. Sometimes it's hard, but it's fun. Yeah. It's nice to be alive. People should think that it's nice to be alive.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps out with the algorithm. And if you really like what you heard, consider supporting the show on Patreon. And one of the benefits of supporting this show on Patreon is that you get your name read out at the end of every episode. So, without further ado, this episode is brought to you by our lovely patrons who include, I am once again Philip Cozy, I drink corn syrup, Yum, Vita Breva, Avocai Brodagam, Caleb Sutton, regular size horse, parentheses, small, Kyle Gannis, Moss, the worst of all possible worlds, Stephen aka Spike Stonehand, Gavin Aronson, Joseph Gross, Robert Eilman, Attention Francis, Shy, Randy Sutton, Josh Christensen, Caleb Butler, Alex, Frankie Teardrop, Martha Zumak, Benjamin Rawls, Eden Friedenberg, James Lunt, A. Aaron, Grouchy's Marxius, Ruthus Truthus, Electron Shed, Jacob Dallas, Kitty Sparks, Dr. Shockmaster, Lord Zed, Ellie, Evan Jones, Nathan Deason, and of course, Chris Barker. Here's Comfort Eagle by Cake.
We are building a religion. We are building it bigger. We are widening the corridors and adding more lanes. We are building a religion, a limited edition. We are now accepting callers for these pendant keychains. To resist it is useless. It is useless to resist it. His cigarette is burning, but he never seems to ash. He is grooming his poodle. He is living Comfort Eagle. You can meet at his location, but you'd better come with cash. Now his hat is on backwards. He can show you his tattoos. He is in the music business. He is calling you dude. Now today is tomorrow, and tomorrow today, and yesterday is weaving in and out. And the fluffy white lines that the airplane leaves behind are drifting right in front of the waning of the moon. He is handling the money. He's serving the food. He knows about your party. He is calling you dude. Now do you believe in the one big sign, the double wide shine on the boot heels of your prime? Doesn't matter if you're skinny, doesn't matter if you're fat. You can dress up like a sultan in your onion head hat. We are building a religion. We're making a brand. We're the only ones to turn to when your castles turn to sand. Take a bite of this apple, Mr. Corporate Events. Take a walk through the jungle of cardboard shanties and tents. Some people drink Pepsi, some people drink Coke. The wacky morning DJ says democracy's a joke. He says, now do you believe in the one big song? He is now accepting callers who would like to sing along. He says, do you believe in the one true edge? By fastening your safety belts and stepping towards the ledge. He is handling the money. He is serving the food. He is now accepting callers. He is calling me dude. Do you believe in the one big sign, the double wide shine on the boot heels of your prime? There's no need to ask directions if you ever lose your mind. We're behind you, and let us please remind you, we can send a car to find you if you ever lose your way. We are building a religion. We are building it bigger.